Okay, hi guys, we're group 5, and for our final project we were looking at different styles of music and their effects on memory. Our main question was, how does different music playing for different lengths of time affect memory? We were interested in seeing how different kinds and lengths of instrumental music affect short-term memory, specifically EDM and classical music being played for 30 seconds versus a full minute. Our hypothesis is that listening to classical music for a full minute will show the most positive effect on memory, while listening to classical music for 30 seconds will be the second most effective.
Most of the previous literature we found all seem to indicate there has not been much work or many studies done regarding sound, music, language, and memory. The oldest study by Rowe, Philip Chalk Cake from 1974 was a study which tested the recall of words or sounds after a short distraction of sounds or words. The study found that listening to distraction sounds for 20 seconds impacted participants' ability to recall the sounds. And that a written poem impacted the participants' ability to recall the words, but not the sounds, suggesting that short-term retention might be mediated by different processes. The second study by Gingold and Abravanel in 1987 was a study of 5- and 7-year-olds to determine how music can help in memory retention. The study found that appropriate music, their term for a musical structure that fit the grammar structure in words, worked well for memory, but that inappropriate music, their term for words set to music that did not fit the grammatical structure, was clearly disruptive to memory recall. The third study by Atherton et al. Was conducted to see if participants could recall a musical or linguistic passage after an intervening stimulus, either musical, linguistic, or none, was delivered. Results indicated that mismatched, i.e. sound for words or words for sounds, were greater than no interference, but matched interference, sound for sound or words for words, created the most interference.
So a little more background about our study. So we did a similar study to our last experiment in Project 2. So we were curious to see if these results in this study would match or be similar to our last results. We had 2 independent variables to measure, the type of music and the length of which it was played. We wanted to see how these 2 IVs would play off of each other. The dependent variable measured the number of correct answers to the memory recall questions. This would hopefully show us whether the length or types of music had an effect on a participant's memory. We conducted the experiment as a 2-way ANOVA test, and we had 2 independent variables, each having 2 different levels to measure. The results of this study could help us in the real world with everyday life. This will hopefully help tell us whether music hinders performance in memory with everyday tasks, like being able to work with music on or running errands with music, if that affects whether you forget to do something, whether it's helpful in academics and doing homework, or if it just distracts people in tasks requiring concentration.
Our methodology for this study was surveys. We collected our results from using them. We minimized confounding variables by randomizing the orders in which participants took the surveys. So every group had a different order in the surveys they took. This helped us by having the participants not memorize the answers to the surveys because they were all the same. Operational definitions, we tested the participants' recall ability. So this is how we collected our data. We tested to see if the participants can recall the color of the font or what the font said. This experiment was easily measurable, so it was easy to organize. And we made the experiment so much that the results were linked. The instructions to the surveys that we put together were understandable by all participants. And it was easy for all the participants to take the survey because it was online and all of us had our online exam. And this experiment is not time consuming. It takes less than 5 minutes to complete all the surveys. So it's easy to do. This is the video of our EDM version. And this is our classical. So the participants have to listen to that while watching the video, and then they have to answer the questions after the video.
For our results, we used a two-way ANOVA test to compare data. Since we had multiple independent variables, the two-way ANOVA test allowed us to compare the means of the data from all of our populations. And we found that our participants who scored or who listened to classical music scored better on average than those who listened to EDM music. The scores for the classical music were 1.586 for the 60 seconds and 1.345 for the 30 seconds, compared to the EDM music participants, which averaged 1.4 for the 60 seconds and 1.1 for the 30 seconds. However, our results were not statistically significant. They only approached statistical significance. This means that while there is a difference when comparing average scores across music and times, it was not large enough. It was not a large enough difference to be significant. The results could have been from the length and type of music or other extraneous variables that are unknown.
So as part of our discussion, as seen in the results, there is nothing statistically significant that we found. Different greatly from what we predicted. We figured that a short 30-second music clip would be harder to recall the memory questions than the second. This is because the 30 seconds would stop in the middle of the test. Could be a distraction for a participant and make them less likely to remember in the future. And then differed greatly from the previous literature that we researched. By Ryan Atkinson, he referenced a study with syllables are tolerant than music with differences. So with our music, we predicted that EDM would be harder to recall the memory questions than classical. This is because EDM has stitches in tones throughout the music, whereas classical music has differing pitches with different instruments, which according to the study should make it easier for people to recall their memory. Some limitations to our study was the amount of people that took the survey, the age range, because we mostly had college students from the college population and young adults. Then our survey was online, so we were unable to gather the results ourselves. So everything based off self-report. For future research, if anyone all right, I can't see it. All right. So for our discussion section, as seen in our results, there was nothing statistically significant that we found. So this differed greatly from what we predicted originally. We figured the short 30-second music video would be a lot harder to recall questions than the 60 seconds. This was due to like there'd been, the music would stop in the middle of the experiment, which would cause a distraction and people would be less likely to remember. Our results differed greatly from the previous literature that we researched. So in one study that Ken mentioned by Ryan Atherton, he referenced a study by Williamson where he states that it was harder to recall their memory when they heard music with similar pitches than a memory with music in differing pitches. So with our music, our EDM song had similar pitches, so we predicted that this then would be harder to recall the memory questions. And then the classical music had differing pitches with the different musical instruments, so we figured people would be able to recall better with this classical music according to the study. Some limitations in our study were the amount of people that took the survey, the age range, as we mostly had college students and young adults. And then our survey was also online instead of in person. So we had to get our results based on people self-reporting it themselves rather than us collecting it. So for future research, if someone were to do this again, I would recommend conducting it in person to get more accurate results so there's no self-reported bias. You could also try and get participants from outside the college campus, whether you go to nursing homes and get people, or you ask parents to do it that way. We could also consider changing the words in our study to make more simple words like cat and dog. This way people won't get as confused with the words being actual colors. So when we ask the recall questions of what color was that word or what was the word, things will be a bit more clear for everyone. And then we had one critical question we wanted to ask our audience. Do you think that we could change an aspect of this study to make results statistically significant? Why or why not? And what could we change if we did it again?